Hello dear students, this is Mr. Sanjay Kuwar. Welcome back in the online lecture series of Chavra English Medium School, Shahada. Dear students, today we are going to understand the most important topic in grammar subject. The lesson name is active and passive voice. Here in this lesson we are going to understand specially the concept. What is an active voice? What is a passive voice? Along with this, we will also understand the basic structure each of them, and we will also try to understand when to use each of them. So let's begin. So dear students, verb expresses action. It tells what a noun or pronoun does, or what is done to a noun or pronoun. So, voice is that form of a verb which shows whether the subject does something or something is done to the subject. What is voice? Voice is that form of the verb which shows whether the subject does something or something is done to the subject. Transitive verb has two voices. Transitive verb has two voices. Which are they? Active voice and passive voice. These are the two voices. So let us understand each of them. First, active voice. The form of verb that tells us what the subject does is called active voice. What is an active voice? The form of verb that tells us what the subject does is called the active voice. For example, the boy kicked the ball. The boy kicked the ball. Here in this sentence, kicked, this is a verb. This is the form of the verb which tells us that in this sentence the subject does something. In this sentence, the subject has given more importance. It is the door of an action. It does something. It acts there. That's why the sentence the boy kicked the ball is said to be in the active voice. Now let us try to understand what is a passive voice. The form of a verb that tells us something is done to the subject is called passive voice. What is passive voice? The form of verb that tells us something is done to the subject is called passive voice. For example, the ball was kicked by the boy. The ball was kicked by the boy. Here in this sentence, the verb was kicked tells us that something is done to the subject. Here, the subject has not given the importance. Here, the subject is not the door of an action. The subject is acted upon. Here, in this sentence, the object, the ball, has given more importance rather than its subjects. That's why the sentence, the ball was kicked by the boy, is said to be in the passive voice. Now, dear students, with the help of this example, we can tell the general structure which we can use in both active voice and passive voice. Let's see first for the active voice. The general structure, it is not fixed. It changes according to the kinds of sentence as well as tense. First, we have to use subject, then verb, and lastly object. Here this is the general structure for the sentence in active voice. Then in the passive voice, the general structure is here. First there comes object. After that, to be form of the verb. We have to use there to be form of the verb. It changes according to the tenses. Then the third form of the verb. The third form of the verb is also called as the past participle form of the verb. After the third form of the verb, we have to use here the preposition by. This is the preposition by. And lastly, we have to write the subject. Okay? This is the general structure of passive voice sentence. So dear students, let us understand the use of passive voice. We can use passive voice when the subject is unknown. It means that if we don't know which is the subject who has done the action, then we can use their passive voice. For example, my pocket was picked. Here, my pocket was picked. In this sentence, there is no subject. Now, let's see the next use. We can use passive voice when we want to focus on the action rather than who did it. Here, the importance is given to the action. For example, the holiday was announced yesterday. The holiday was announced yesterday. In this sentence, the more importance is given to the action rather than its subject. Now dear students, let us try to understand how to change active voice into passive voice. There are some basic steps. There are some basic rules how to change active voice into passive voice. So let's understand all that rules. First, identify subject, verb and object in the sentence. For example, active voice sentence. He writes a letter. He writes a letter. In this sentence, which is the subject? He. He is a subject because it is the door of an action. Next, the verb is write. Here, it is a verb because it shows the action of writing. Next, a letter. This is an object. We know that how to find out an object in the sentence. We can ask the sentence a question with what or to whom. The answer will be an object. So here we can make a question like this. What does he write? The answer will be here a letter. So a letter, it is an object. Now after identifying the subject, verb and objects, which is the next step? Let's see that. Convert subject into object. Now we have to convert subject into objects. See here, this is the subject and this is the object. We have to interchange their places. Here the subject, he becomes object in the passive voice. In the passive voice, the subject he becomes object here. If in active voice, pronoun is used as a subject, then that pronouns are written in their objective form while converting that sentence into the passive voice. For example, he becomes him. In the same way, other pronouns like she turns into her, I becomes me, we becomes us, they them. But the subjects, the pronouns like you and it remains unchanged. So dear students, here the object, a letter, becomes subject. A letter is here a subject. In this way we have to change the places. The subject becomes object and the object becomes here the subject. Now let's see the next step. Third, use suitable helping verb. After using the object here, we have to use the suitable helping verb according to the tenses and according to the subject, whether the subject is singular or plural. So dear students, here in the active voice there is a simple present tense. Writes. It denotes that there is a simple present tense. That's why is, this helping verb is written after a later. Now let us move on to the next step. Fourth, convert main verb into past participle. See, here we have to use the past participle form of the main verb write. Which is the main verb here? Writes. So here the past participle form of writes is written. It is the third form of the verb. After using the third form of the verb, which is the next step, use preposition by before subject. Now here we have to use the preposition by after the past participle form of the verb. In this way, these all the steps helps us to change active voice sentence into the passive voice. These are the simple basic rules which we have to use for changing active voice sentence into the passive voice sentence. Now dear students, let us try to learn how to change active voice sentence into the passive voice in different tenses. So the first tense, simple present tense. Simple present tense. Example, birds build nest. Here, this sentence we will change into the passive voice. Which is the first step? First we have to identify the subject, verb and object. So here, birds, subject, build, verb and next object. While changing active voice sentence to the passive voice, which is the next step, we have to interchange the subject and object. Here the subject birds becomes object in the passive voice and nest, this object becomes subject. Okay. Next we have to use suitable to be form of the verb. Here the sentence is in simple present tense, so the suitable helping verb is are after nest. Then after using there the suitable to be form of the verb or the helping verb, we have to use the past participle form of the main verb, build. 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 This verb's past participle is build. And after that we have to use preposition by. In this way, passive voice answer, nests are built by birds. Let's move on to the next tense, present continuous tense. Example, they are singing a song. Here, let us first find out subject, then the verb and the object. The next step is interchange the subject and objects. This subject becomes the object here, and since it's a pronoun, that will change into the objective form then. And the last object, a song, becomes the subject here. After using this subject, we have to use there the proper helping verb. The suitable helping verb is in the present continuous tense. It's being. Being, it is used to show the action is going on. The action which is continuous, that is represented by the word being. Next, after using the helping verb, we have to use there the third form of the verb of singing. Sung. This is the past participle or the third form of the verb. Then we have to use their preposition by. In this way, the answer is a song is being sung by them. Now, next tense. Present perfect tense. Here, example, I have sharpened the knife. First, identify subject, then main verb, and lastly object. After identifying, interchange their places. The subject I becomes here object. Its objective form is me. I will become me. Then the object, the knife, becomes here the subject. After writing this, we have to use there the helping verb. Which is the suitable helping verb? Which is the suitable helping verb here? Have been for the present perfect tense. Have for the plural subject and has for the singular subject. After the helping verb, we have to use the past participle form of the verb. And as well, next preposition by. And in this way, the answer is the knife have been sharpened by me. Now, the next one, simple past tense. Example, he sold the pianos. Here, the subject is he, verb sold, and the object is the pianos. Now, let us interchange their places. Subject he becomes the object here. We have to change that into the objective form him, and the object, the pianos, becomes here the subject. After using this subject, we have to use there the suitable to be form of the verb in simple past tense. Which is that? Were. Was and were. So suitable is here. After the plural form of subject, we have to use here were. After using the suitable helping verb, we have to use the third form. So the third form, sold. Third form of the verb. The past participle form of the verb is here sold. Then next, of course, the preposition by, and lastly ending with that object. So, dear students, today we have learned the concepts. What is active voice? What is passive voice? And the simple steps or the basic rules which we use for converting active voice into the passive voice, along with the uses of passive voice. We shall learn other examples of other remaining tenses in the next video. Till then, goodbye.